He's the voiceover studio engineer of the Stars in Los Angeles, California, a Virginia Tech grad with a knowledge of recording studios unmatched in his field. He's a voice actor from Buffalo, New York, with 30 years experience in recording studios and behind the mic. He solves people's home voiceover studio problems in the blink of an eye. Together, there's no studio problem they can't solve, and they'll do it for you tonight. Welcome to East West Audio Body Shop. Now, live from a basement in Buffalo and an office in L.A., here are Dan Leonard and George Whittam.
All righty, does this sound any better? Let's see, we got to play with this thing here. And then
this microphone's not plugged in. Is this supposed to be part of the show?
I don't know. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
I
think people are watching. People are watching.
Yes. What? What?
We're on.
Oh,
we're live.
okay.
We're live.
Okay. All right. Hi there. I'm Dan Leonard in my basement here in the East.
I'm in my Medusa wire hole in the West.
The Hydra. And we are East West Audio Body Shop. Thank you for your patience, folks. You guys are amazing. We're glad to see that you still hang out with us. You know, we're running this thing. It's almost 2 tin cans and a string. It really is.
And as Julia Child says, never explain, never apologize.
That's right.
We're professionals, damn it.
That's right. Never panic. We didn't panic. You just work through the problem.
That's right.
It's a miracle that it's here. And yes, we laid hands on it and it has returned. Anyway, let's pick up where we left off. If any of you were with us before, and most of you are like, huh?
That's because we started the show over.
That's true, we did. But for those of you who already heard the beginning of the show, well, you know what's going on. We have a special guest with us, and he's going to be with us for the first half hour of the show, or 20 minutes, or however.
Our better
his
half.
Dinner shows up, right? And he is a very familiar voice to many of us who listen to the radio, and we'll find out what else he does, and why he is such a big guy in this business. Let's give a big East West Audio Body Shop welcome to Howard Kogan. Good evening, Howard.
Hey guys. Hello. Wow, does this work?
Is this thing on?
Actually working. Is this thing on? Yeah, it's on. All right. Welcome to our humble little abode here, and humble it is tonight.
Your show probably worked fine until I showed up, right?
Yeah, it was that iPad idea that we tried. No, we've been having a little bit of trouble with iStream or Ustream, and
we all stream for iStream.
I knew you were going there. Anyway. Break up the tension with humor. Anyway, no, we're doing fine here. Howard, welcome to the show. That is one gorgeous studio you're in there.
Well, and you can, George was a big part of this. George designed it, and we hashed a lot of stuff out on paper. I was working in a whisper room in a garage, and in California, it's always too hot or too cold in that whisper room. If if I was still recording at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then, those winter mornings where you can see your breath when you're recording is also a little rough. So I thought, after a few years of that, I thought, all right, let's just build a studio and, at least keep the temperature consistent and allow me to, to work. And, George did a great job. I don't know if I can... You want a little mini tour? I mean,
sure. Show us around,
please.
But it won't take long. But I'm kind of on my laptop here, but I'll show you. I have my computer here, and I got my Pro Tools, and we put in some like LED lighting. You can see on the ceiling, so it doesn't get overly hot. And then what George did, which was cool, his design was we had one big room, but there's a second. Let me just unplug from the AC. But there's a second room. In here, which is, an airlock, which is also the equipment room. Mm-hmm. So this is the engineering rack in here. And, that most of this, to be honest, most of this is just to watch television. The actual studio is only, an ISDN, a Telezephyr, and then the Pro Tools, and then, I have a Sonos system to listen to music, and then, my internet and so forth. But need much. But the main purpose of this, obviously beyond holding the equipment, is an airlock, so my kids can scream and yell, and they can scream and yell, and I don't have to hear them. And I have a little cool. Actually, we built more than a studio too. We have there's like a lounge area out here, so you can watch television. and chill out. So I could have people, watching TV and, watching a movie, or the kids screaming, and, I could be recording a live session, and, you don't hear anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
that's the great thing about our business, is that you can work whenever you want, but then again, you have to be able to work whenever you want, and a facility like that is certainly the way to do it. So and when did you build this?
When was it, George? It's about 1.5 years ago, I would say.
Mm-hmm. About 1.5 years ago. And, it was, you brought me in. What was amazing is that you met me at the initial fundraiser dinner or party at Joe Cipriano's house for the Don LaFontaine voiceover lab.
That's right.
You actually won me. And,
I did. I won George.
Yeah, you won me in the silent auction, which was awesome.
And we looked at each other and said, well, I don't know. What do you want to do?
And it just turned out that Howard was in the midst of designing, literally working with his contractor, who happened to be his neighbor, and also an architect. And they were literally, the drawings were drawn, and he was like, what can we do to make this room, into a studio? And I was like, wow, okay. I'm glad you brought me in when you did. It was perfect timing. Any later and it would have been challenging. But, it was perfect. The architect was flexible. His contractor was right in step and was, really helping us think outside the box to solve some somewhat challenging, building, some building challenges.
But it was cool to be able to do that on the ground floor, because, I'd climb up on the ladder, and I remember Scott, our contractor, would, he would say, all right, are you sure you want this to be the studio? And I was like, well, what do you mean? We have plans. He goes, forget the plans. You're standing here right now. If I move this, 2x4 over here, your studio's now going to be this big.
Yep.
You want it this big or this big? So it was cool to be there on, and standing there and going, all right, well, if I have a chair and a desk and a computer, and, being able to do that from scratch is beneficial. And it worked out well. And I'm glad I added that extra foot over to the left or whatever, because, when you start doubling up the walls and you don't see all that stuff, it would have been, pretty small. Yeah. So it came out well.
Yeah.
Well, we were visiting in Mark Cashman's studio a couple of weeks ago, and this one is equally as gorgeous. You guys build nice studios out in California. You don't have to hang out in people's basements. But
there are no basements.
We don't have basements. Our basements are this big, and you have to crawl into them. And there's a lot of mud.
Yeah, well, there's no mud down here, fortunately. But so let's talk a little bit about, you're obviously in a wonderful studio, because you obviously produce wonderful audio. What you primarily focus on imaging work?
Yeah, I do. I kind of fell into voiceover. I got to be honest. I was in radio for years. I was a jock, and when I was a jock, I hate, and I mean jock not as an athlete, as you can see. I'm no athlete. But
you're holding the record.
Yes. But when I was a DJ, for lack of a better term, I hated reading the ads. I didn't want to do. I used to figure ways out of the radio station so the producers would never see me, so I would never have to read a piece of copy. And somehow, in this weird twist of fate, that's all I do all day now is read copy. But I love it, and there's certainly a difference, in doing imaging and doing, television promos and ads for ad agencies than sometimes just reading local copy at a radio station.
Right.
The quality of the copy and the whole process is different and much more enjoyable. So, I sort of fell into this business. And, and I got lucky. To be honest, as anybody in radio knows, getting fired is, you probably have more fires on your records than hires. And we always get fired. And sometimes it's, opening your big mouth and saying the wrong thing, or it's a program director who doesn't like you, or they just decide to change the format to polka music next week.
Right.
And you're all gone.
I've seen it happen.
So we've all been through that. And, so when I started imaging with Jack, I think I was unemployed at the time. I remember that. It was like April of about 2000. I found out my wife was pregnant. I had a baby on the way, and my income that month went to absolute zero. I had nothing. I go, what am I going to do? And I did do a few ads before, and I started doing these beer commercials. Up in Canada, I do some, some of the Molson or, the beer ads.
Great ads up there, though. And
I pitched, I had a friend at a station, what at the time was called Kiss FM in Vancouver. And And I pitched them, and I said, these guys are spending millions on these ads for beer commercials, and the way we're reading these beer ads is sort of like a regular guy, and it's sort of an almost anti-radio, and nothing against radio, but a 180-degree turn from the old school imaging where it's the top of the Empire State Building and everything's big and grand and boastful. And we sort of decided to change that, and and maybe, in Vancouver, they thought, well, let's try a different approach when they launched this station, which at the time they didn't know was going to be called Jack FM. I think they had a bunch of names they were kicking around. And, I guess there was two things that helped me get that. Was one, I had that sort of approach that was different from everybody else, not being the typical sort of voiceover guy. And the other was I worked in that market as a jock, so I had a bit of a name, and there was a bit of nostalgia and heritage with it, because a lot of that music that they played on Jack was the music that was popular when I was a top 40 DJ. So there's quite a few factors, and I think all the message and all of that for anybody else doing voiceover is it's really, it's not about your voice. It's really, when they don't hire a voice, they really hire a person. Yeah. And it's sort of who you are, and what, most of the time in big ad campaigns, it's celebrities, they want George Clooney or Julia Roberts, or, and they embody something. And that's something to keep in mind, is sometimes we get over-focused on the voice and voiceover. And it really isn't. It's sort of who you are, and you already know how to speak, and you speak to your friends, and you're not like, whoa, why did you inflect like that? You don't even think about it in your daily life when you speak. And that's what they look for a lot in all aspects of this business right now.
Right. Now, what is really now you were just talking about how, imaging is, just like talking. Now, we're all familiar with Jack FM, and I know there's one here in Buffalo, there's probably one in Des Moines, there's probably one, as I said this afternoon, all over the fruited plain. You've got this wonderful, sarcastic sort of thing about how you do that, and that's your style of doing that. But is there, I don't want to say, is there a secret? We don't want you to give away your trades or anything. What is it really that imaging really involves? What is it that separates, guys like you that are, certainly thriving at that, and everybody else going, I could do that, and they're not?
It's hard. I mean, if somebody said to me, hey, do you want to start imaging tomorrow? I would look back, I don't know how I even did this. It's a series of happy accidents. A lot of things are beyond your control. You always hear of, there's guys, Mitch Craig was the first guy to do this in Memphis. And, I think he moved to Memphis to be in the FedEx hub, because back then there was no internet, and you would send the tapes out, and,
right.
There's the gods of the imaging industry. And Mitch was the first, of many, and that sort of did it from a home studio, which back then probably cost almost $1 million to, get all the big equipment in. And all of these guys, started off doing massive, the imaging as we grew used to. So, I mean, you're asking me what's important and how do you do it? I don't know how I did it, but I mean, what's important to make it work is the copy. It's really the writing. I mean, it's no different than anything in Hollywood with movies. You can have the greatest actors in the world. If it's a lousy script, it's not going to hold your interest. And the writing is crucial. And at Jack, we have a lot of emphasis on the writing, and we do a lot of that. We have a creative, group of guys here in Los Angeles, and that to me is crucial. And I don't think, I could be where I am today without a good group of writers.
Yeah. Is it really a dumpy little building?
The one in Los Angeles is really a dump. When I first recorded that line, and I swear this is true, I walked into, it's Jack FM in Los Angeles is owned by CBS, and we have sister station, K-Rock and Amp FM or Amp Radio. And I walked into the bill. I was living in Toronto at the time, and I came to LA. I think we had interviews, we were doing CNN and stuff. And anyway, I came to Los Angeles, and I walked into the building, and they said, hey, we want to do this legal ID at the top of the hour. And they brought me into a studio, and they said, hang on a sec. And I swear to God, there was blue tarp over all the equipment, and they removed this blue tarp, and I said, what's that? And they said, oh, it rained last night, and the roof was leaking, and they don't want the rain to leak all over the equipment. This is a station. I mean, K-Rock at one time was probably the #1 billing radio station in the entire United States, and it really is this dumpy building. So I was sitting, broadcasting live from a dumpy little building in beautiful downtown Culver City. And then that's sort of how that whole thing started. The roof was leaking, the equipment, and now they've upgraded and, they're sinking a bit of money into it. But at the time, it really was dumpy. And we hoped we all didn't die of asbestos poisoning.
I've worked in a lot of places like that. I know you probably have too, George. We got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, we got a couple of questions here. So from our good friend FM Bomb. It says, where was that question? Everything keeps jumping on me here. Format.
Reposted I'll read it to you. He reposted at the bottom. He said,
I see. How much longer?
Serving the entire format group, what bulk of scripts/files is created every day?
Yeah, really.
That's true. I mean, before I was doing, I did do a little bit of imaging sort of that weren't jacks. I did a station out in, Dublin, Ireland, and a couple of, originally I did a few of the Bob FMs, but I found if I did any stations that were sort of the typical formats, you didn't do much. I mean, you read a promo or two a week, and, sometimes you'd freshen up a legal ID or a couple of the positioning statements. But with Jack, we have, they don't have disc jockeys. A few of them have morning shows, but I'm the only voice on the entire station 24 hours a day. And the biggest thing with this format is we don't want it to sound like it's this, robotic computer voice, which I'm sure a lot of people think it is. But to break that, we want to be topical. And there's times where, we'll reflect something. They'll send me copy and it'll be on the air within a half an hour in Los Angeles. And, the amount of copy and the volume, because you're being topical. I mean, we'll write, 25 lines that day about Kim Kardashian. And it'll take, I think in Los Angeles, I can read, I've had months where I've read over more than 40 pages of copy in a month. So there's a lot of volume in this it really is. And I don't, some guys probably have 100 radio stations. I don't think you could do it with Jack. I mean, we've been smart and lucky that we've grouped the smaller markets where we've done more of a network type feed. And, otherwise, if we had to do these, all these lines for every station individually,
right,
it would be almost impossible for anybody to do.
Yeah, I remember doing that in the early days of satellite radio, and it's like trying to customize for each individual station. It was like, okay, we're coming up on a break. All right, go, and try and record it that way. So this,
they all have, so it's really about being smart, because you want the local stations to sound local and to have
absolutely,
and they all have their own sports teams and football teams, and they win and they lose, and concerts and so forth. So there is a lot of content in each local market that you do have to tailor. And you have to be careful as a VO when you do imaging, and if you do get into larger markets, you can't spend more time on Boise, Idaho than you do on Los Angeles, where there's a lot more at stake. So you have to you have to be smart on the business sense, where your money and your pages and your contracts are reflected based on your market size and what's at stake.
Yeah. Okay, we got a technical question here. Seeing as you're in the studio there, and like me, you came out of radio, so you had a little bit of an up on a lot of people when you really got into the voiceover business, because you understood what a VU meter is. A lot of people don't. But our buddy Cliff Zellman asks about compression and stuff like that. So I'll simplify that question for everybody else and simply say, do you do much of your own processing? When you send stuff out from your studio, what do you do to it, or it doesn't have to be fairly raw?
Let me just give you one thing, background how I handle things technically. I'm not a big, and George may disagree with me on this, but I'm not a big advocate of hardware anymore. As you saw, I have an ISDN unit and a Digi-O2. I don't have a compressor. I don't have all. Does that mean I do no compression? No. If some of you that know Steve Stone, he was, he used to be a producer as well, and he's great with all of that. And he sent me like a template for Pro Tools with noise gates and some compression. There, I do promo work as well, and for a while I did some promos up in Canada on CTV, and they were fanatic in Canada with CTV about their audio and the voiceovers, and they wanted everything flat. And the problem is, if it's too flat, I think it really does get lost in the mix. And if you I've heard you guys on your show speaking about, being careful with compression and normalizing, because you can't unbake the cake, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
And if you do too much, you ruin it and destroy it. So I do a bit of compression. I can't remember the ratio, but I'm assuming it's gonna. If it had to go on, this is my rule of thought. If it had to go on the air, it would be acceptable. But if somebody wants to sweeten it some more and add to it, there's still some headroom for them to move. But you have to be careful when you're, especially in imaging, because you don't know all the markets, and some of them, some guys might not even have an imaging guy and throw the thing, hack it and throw it straight on the air without any production, and that could be your worst case scenario. So I think you want to cover your rear end on the worst case scenario and put something there at least.
Yeah, but not too much, because, and I think a lot of people lose this when they get in. They're like, well, I'm going to make radio commercials. They think they have to make it sound like it's already on the radio, and they don't realize it's being shoved into an Optimod and all of these different processors that go out over the air.
Misconception.
And that's the problem. And when you're doing, television, and the reason CTV in Canada was like that is because they have all of these television stations across the country. And, and people are fanatic with television because they think the ads are louder, which they may be. So, the affiliate in this part of the country may have a different audio chain than another affiliate. So they always have to find this sort of lowest common denominator that works and is acceptable in all of these audio chains across the country. So you don't know, if you're doing an ad, that could run on, 100 radio stations or hundreds, and they're all going to have different sound chains. So that from A to B is a long road, and I would say a little bit of compression, a little bit of sweetening, but be careful.
Yeah, you don't want to overpower it. Now, Ann Richardson has a great question. She don't know how you'd quantify this, but what percentage of radio imaging is done by women?
I think a lot. I mean, I've been on a few stations where they've put a female voice with, Ann DeWig, and some, there are female voices. I think, if television sort of sets the trends now more than radio. Certain networks appeal to women. I think on some promos on MTV, I hear, women that sound like, or maybe are or aren't 16-year-old girls. Because that's a market they're trying to appeal to. You watch, I think Hallmark sometimes, it depends. And the percentage in radio, I would say like at least a third has a female presence on their stations, depending, even rock stations sometimes, the guys think the women are sexy and the women think the guys are sexy. So it all cross mixes too based on, the demographics and stuff. But I would guess at least a third, if not half, have some sort of female presence, and it breaks it up a little bit too, so it's not the same monotonous thing. And it depends on the branding. I mean, with Jack, we usually they brand with my voice. So if they start adding all the other stuff to it, then the brand starts to get watered down. So it depends on whether you're accenting something or you're the brand. And that goes back to what I originally talked about. To any female voice, be that person and encompass something and sound like somebody who embodies something. And I think you'll get a lot more work as a female voice.
Good point. Another technical thing. You're probably using a Sennheiser 416, are you not?
I am.
Show everybody the 416 here.
Can you say it's against the blare? Let me take my screensaver off.
Is.
There's the 416.
Is that the only mic you use, or do you have some other in your line?
I used to use those Neumann, the ones for broadcast, but I didn't. When I went and played AB, compared them, I didn't like the Neumann. To me, I mean, the big expensive Neumanns are fantastic, but those sort of broadcast ones are good for on air. But they're not. I don't like them for recording. I love these the 416. I mean, I think Ernie Anderson way back at ABC was one of the first to insist on those, everywhere. And I've started when I did go out to studios and do ads and stuff, I would see that they seem to be omnipresent. And I went, must be a reason. And I tried it out and I liked it. I mean, it depends on, who you are and what your voice sounds like, but they're very sensitive and they're designed for, newscasters, they used to put them on the camera and the news anchor, or not anchor, but reporter would be 10 or 15 feet away sometimes and would pick them up. Yeah. Also ADR and the dialogue in movies. So there's a certain you know, we're used to that sound in a weird sort of way, hearing it on television and movies all over the place. So I like it, and that's, you know, my personal preference, and I'm sure everybody else has a different opinion. But
Right. Well, it's the popular model for definitely for imaging, because it's more broadcast, and imaging is designed for broadcast, and that's the normal sound that you get. You know, a more close-up sound, more of a definitive sound.
Yeah.
Whereas in voiceover, where you're acting, it's got to be more of, well, here's how you sound as you're talking to somebody else, which is why you're a little bit more standoff with a condenser microphone.
Yeah.
But clearly for imaging, all the big imaging guys are using the
And
416. And promo.
yeah,
Mhm.
promo too. It seems to be. Yeah.
Isn't promo and imaging the same thing?
They are so similar, aren't they? In a lot of ways.
Yeah, they are. You know, I mean, doing the work is very different. I mean, I also do the promos for Modern Family on ABC, and when we cut those, we're always doing them live to the not live on the air, but live to picture sort of thing. I don't
Yeah.
see it, but you know, they'll run the promo beep
SOT.
beep beep, and you have to jump in between the SOTs, which is set on tape, and you know, the dialogue. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more, you know, and you have five, you know, people telling you what to do and how to read it, and the timing is really crucial. Whereas imaging, to me, most of the time I just get a page of copy, and I play each line back and make sure I direct myself, and it's a very different process. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, your job is similar. You're promoting a broadcast entity in some way.
Clearly. All righty. Well, boy, everybody's talking about microphones. Everybody's got microphone envy out there. That's not good.
You can
What do you
chase
think of-
microphone envy for the rest of your entire life.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
He with the biggest microphone wins.
Right.
Yeah, not necessarily. It's changing these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. We got another question here. Then we'll take a break here. So how much direction do you take when you're doing imaging work? They just send you the scripts, you send them off, and they know you're going to do it, or does someone say, try it this way or try it that way? Or
if anybody ever tells me how to read anything, I usually throw my headphones on the ground and storm out of the room. No, I'm joking.
that's what I like to hear.
You know, it's a collaborative effort, and you know, a lot of times I'll read something one way, and you know, I'll interpret the copy one way, and if I have most of the stuff, I work with Mike Crank here in Los Angeles, who was at K-Rock and moved over to Jack. And it's good, you know. I'll read 10 lines and you won't say a word, and that one will say, "Why don't you try it like you're stoned, or try it like, you know, you're really excited or something." And you know, he'll throw in a different way of saying something I never thought of, and it comes out a lot better. So I love having, you know, somebody to collaborate with on spots, and I'm always, you know, sort of a perfectionist. You want to get it right and make it better. So direction to me is a great thing, and you know, but sometimes you can get somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. Hey, try it with a lisp, and it's like, why, you know? But you know, sometimes it you know, does go the wrong way. But most of the people I've been fortunate enough to work with have been great, and you know, collaborative, and it's a great process.
Great. Well, Howard, it has been a super major league pleasure having you with us tonight on East West Audio Body Shop. We get the best people, and every week it's something new and great stuff and industry insight, and we really appreciate you taking the time out and waiting for your dinner and hanging out in your studio.
Well, thanks for having me, guys, and I'm sorry I broke everything, but
Not
that's
even.
the way it usually goes around here.
Not even, man. Thanks for joining us. We had a good time with you. We could do this for an hour, easy. Thank you, man.
Well, take care, and I hope everything works for the rest of the show.
Yeah, we're hoping.
See you, man.
Take care, guys.
All right, take care. All righty. Well, we're still here. This is still working, George?
Still working. We're still on. You
All
know
right.
what? Let's run a spot. Let's run a spot for one of us while we figure out why the hangout just ended. And it's just me now. So we just lost Dan. So what we'll do is we'll go to a spot here. And so we'll be back right after this.
we are back here on East West Audio Body Shop. Yes, and it's good to be back and back on our main camera here.
That's right.
You guys have no idea what it's like to produce this show.
And you don't need to know. That's the best part.
You don't need to see how the sausage is made. But it is made, and that's the most important thing. And we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us and spending your Sunday nights with us when you could be doing all sorts of other stuff like making money, watching Once Upon a Time like my wife is, and all those other things. But boy, what a week this was for you. I mean, it's quiet here, but I'm hearing all of this yelling, and I can hear it all the way from the West Coast. So.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Life goes on.
That's true. but here's the lesson in this: never panic.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm dealing with people who are auditioning and people who are, if they're in a session or something, and something goes, you gotta fix it. Yeah. Like, take your time. I mean, unless you're Sully Sullenberg trying to land that plane in the Hudson River, it's not a disaster. It's just a voice, and people are patient. Yeah, maybe they're paying by the hour. But if you're doing a local spot or something for some regional spot, it's no big deal. And, it's not worth a bottle of Mylanta. It really isn't.
Or worse.
Although I'm sure you've probably gone through 3 or 4 in the last couple of hours. So.
It's a good drill to put yourself through once in a while. But generally, I like it when things just work. And, I'd say about 3/4 of the time, things do just work. It's like once I get everything working, I love being able to walk in a half hour before the show, load up my EWABS user account and just have everything, boom, just like work. There's just nothing better. And then just to test you to see if you've been complacent, something goes wrong. Just to check you, make sure you're still on your toes, So that's technology for you.
Yeah.
So
did we got a couple of questions from viewers?
We did.
Why don't we talk about some of those?
Absolutely. Let me go back to one we got from. Let's see. This was a good one here from Andy.
Andy.
Yeah.
Andy
at topvoiceover.com.
There's only one Andy. Well, maybe there's a couple.
You mentioned on the last show providing a diagnosis of my recording, and my studio is set up in a basement bedroom. Mm-hmm. We provided a file, and he wants to know if there's any suggestions with working with GarageBand to produce spots. Are there any features I should be using besides their auto compress, auto normalize? P.S. The tip last week on the MacBook sound level was a gem. Thanks for that too. Should I be investing in more RLX or other items based on what you heard during the spot and the dead air? Well, we haven't gotten to take a listen to it yet, but the GarageBand question we can definitely address.
Absolutely. Well, and as Rosanna Dana once said, you ask a lot of questions.
Well, I know, Dan, you've done a webinar on GarageBand, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. And I used to use GarageBand when I first started with the Mac, and I was like, hey, this is free. I'll try this.
Yeah.
Because it's a great little multi-track program. Now, the folks at Apple, their idea was, here's a great way for people to learn how to make music because it's got its own little keyboard and you can record, listen, and do typical multi-track recording. It's for editing, it's not the greatest because you can't scrub with it. You can't actually listen as you run the playhead, the cursor along the sound line, the timeline. And it's important to be able to hear those sorts of things. But it creates these little, what some people like to call bubbles. And you think, okay, move this one over here, move that one over there. It's got fairly good processing. And I know I always say, all software is the same. It's all ones and zeros and stuff like that. Well, I used GarageBand for about a year or so, and then I tried something a little more high-end. I'm like, that sounds just a little bit better. And so I that's actually when I moved up to Sound Booth about 5 years ago. And although GarageBand probably sounds better now, GarageBand has, and we know this because you're actually, I think you finally turned it off. We use processing in GarageBand to produce the show here.
Yep.
There is front end processing on there, limiters and and reverb and all these other things you can throw on there. They're not quite as good as, say, some of the other programs like Adobe Audition or SoundForge or it's Twisted Wave. You can do just about anything with that too. For commercial production, couple of points here. If you don't really know how to do commercial production, a couple of standard settings in there isn't going to suffice, because your music levels are going to be different. Your voice delivery is going to be different. You've got to learn the variables of all those compression settings and understand how to get your voice to float on top of a different piece of music. And it's not just one setting. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. I mean, learning production is a class. At the very least, it's a weekend-long class for a crash course.
A weekend class?
Yeah, I mean, like it's 8-hour class.
Learning how to do that.
No, I know. I mean, you could crash course and learn a couple of key techniques in a weekend if there was, such a thing. But really, it's actually probably years of experience that really comes down to. I mean, you can luck into it, you can experiment, you can keep sliding and turning knobs until what you're creating sounds kind of like what you're hearing in your head, or maybe what you're creating sounds like that thing that you're trying to duplicate. I mean, and that's probably a good exercise. Find an example that you think sounds amazing and try to duplicate it on your own.
Right.
And if you can simulate somebody else's work, then you've come a long way in learning how to run the equipment and learning how to engineer.
Right. But you're not going to learn it overnight. And again, not one setting's not going to do it. There are some, they try to make it somewhat idiot-proof in GarageBand, and that's nice. But
they give you great starting points. There's a lot of templates, but those templates can also lead you they can lead you down the wrong direction occasionally, because they might be heavy-handed. They might have too much of something, and you may not realize it. Like, isn't there like a voiceover project or a voiceover track or some kind of voiceover setting that's built in?
Yeah, well, actually, there's the one in Adobe Audition CS5 that I use as voiceover.
Yeah,
and I've created a stack with that with a small EQ adjustment.
Yeah,
and it sounds really good. But I'm always experimenting. I'm always saying, I wonder if I could make this sound different. I wonder if I could make myself sound not necessarily better, but different for individual different types of spots. Sure. And, and primarily I don't do a lot of commercial work. It's mostly e-learning and a lot of narration and audiobooks and stuff like that. A totally different thing. And I think that's probably that was something I actually wanted to talk about this week before we had all of these technical difficulties that were messing us up the last couple of days, is there are so many different genres of material out there to do.
Right.
You can't, and if you go into forums, and I waste way too much time on those forums. If anybody saw me this week going, Dan, you're wasting your time on there. There's different things, and you're really comparing a lot of apples to oranges here, where this type of production is necessary for audiobooks, and this type of production is necessary for e-learning, and this is necessary for this type of commercial, and this is necessary for this type of commercial, or they want nothing. They just want your raw voice, and that's that. And you all know that if you've been auditioning for all these different materials and doing all this different work, there's a lot of differences between this. There's no one single specific thing. So going way back to Andy's question, GarageBand has its place for one thing or another, but since you're on a Mac, try Twisted Wave. Take a look at Adobe Audition CS5 for Mac. I'm not going to say the PT word. Whose name who shall not be mentioned. And
it's already been mentioned quite a bit on this show, actually, because that's what Howard uses.
I know.
Yeah,
but he had it all set up before.
He had somebody set. Yeah, that's the key thing. And in case anybody missed that, he mentioned that he had some help. Somebody sent him some templates, told him what plugins to buy, and turnkeyed it for him. So there's quite a big difference between that and figuring it out on your own.
That's true.
You got to have an expert. If you have a specific goal in mind, get someone that knows production to help you through those steps and learn how to do that. And the more times you do that, the more techniques you learn, the more you'll learn how to adapt them to different types of projects.
Right. As I like to say, go out and play.
Yeah. Should we squeeze one more question in?
Sure, go for it.
There's a lot of banter in the chat room right now about acoustics, and we also had a question from Keith about acoustics. And he said, have you tested the new ATS acoustic panels that use cotton, and how do they compare to the regular stuff that's Roxul, which is not known as a rock wool fiberboard thing? And how do the two compare? And there's also questions in the chat room buzzing about foam, and is all foam created equal? Blah, blah, blah. What's NRC? So there's a lot of things buzzing around about acoustics, but I will start by saying NRC is noise reduction coefficient. And no matter how you achieve the goal of creating this noise reduction coefficient, that how you do it doesn't matter. It's just, did you achieve it? You can use foam. You can use fiberglass. You can use blankets. You can use Fernie pads. It doesn't matter as long as you achieve the amount of reduction that you require in the frequency range that you need it, which is your vocal range. And the best NRC you can achieve is a 1.0. However, that's measured off the front surface of the material. So if your panels that you have are suspended away from the wall a couple inches, now it can be used on both sides because the sound goes through, bounces off, and goes back the other way. So the panels that are used that way sometimes will have an NRC rating even higher. It can go up to 1.2, 1.3, I've even seen. So, but you want high NRC ratings to absorb as much sound as possible. If you have low NRC stuff, which is usually foam, and you're only getting, 0.2 to 0.5, then you're going to have more of that to make up for the difference. You're going to have to cover more surface area of the walls. So, but one more thing, I'll just address the question. Yes, the cotton is actually, I think it outperforms all the other materials out there right now. The cotton batting is supposedly the most effective per square inch and give you the most NRC. It's the most expensive also, but it's also the greenest. It has, it's just cotton. It's just denim. There's no formaldehyde and particles that you're going to get in your lungs. So if you really care about your lungs and you have the budget to put this stuff in your studio, I would recommend it.
And when you retire, you can just take it all down and make a quilt out of it.
Right. You could stuff it into pillows. You could literally make pillows with it.
Make a dog bed. It's also cool things with that. I've heard that too. The cotton's pretty good. I've got this weird material that I've got over here that's got about an inch thick fiberglass surrounded by cotton muslin on it, and that works really, really well. And there's lots of different options. And as I like to tell people, look, we're starting off with your home studio. Let's see what you got first in your closet or in your attic or something that might work. And if it does work, hey, there's a couple $1,000 we just saved you. So
right.
It's pretty easy that way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers that.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on, but we want to move on.
That's right. I mean, we're running late tonight, although it doesn't matter. Oh, I also wanted to ask you this because you've been busy like plugging in wires. Next week is the Super Bowl. Do you really want to do a show next week during the Super Bowl?
That's a good question. I really don't care about watching the Super Bowl at all. I don't have TV, but this year it's on the internet. So I'm considering actually watching it because it's on the internet this year. And it's just, I don't know why. It's just something novel about it. But you know what? If we don't do a show next week, maybe we'll take a poll on the website and see.
Yeah.
They'll
all say, have the show. And then any of them going to show up? Nah, they're going to be watching the game.
Well, so it's probably going to be the third and going to the fourth quarter when our show goes on the air.
Right. And if it's a great game, which
forget it.
Yeah. So, do we make a game time decision? Do we scratch it off?
I know. Maybe not.
Well, we'll talk about it this week, and you guys will know probably somewhere towards the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, we'll keep you guys posted.
We'll keep you posted on that. I mean, I'd always rather be doing this. This is more fun than we should be allowed to have, and obviously you guys think the same, and that's why you show up every week. Yeah. And because you show up every week, you need to show your loyalty. Wasn't that a great segue? You like that?
I like it.
Okay, we've got the East West Audio Body Shop where you can get all sorts of cool stuff. You can get a mug with our mugs on it. Show that one off.
Let me show you guys the mug.
Up there. Let's show them the kind of stuff we have here. As if you don't know already.
I know.
The prices are great. There's our logo.
There's the mug.
There's the mug. There's the mouse pads. The jackets for your laptop. I use that every morning. I never wash it out. Makes some weird coffee some mornings. We've got lots of great T-shirts and sweatshirts. I have my shirt, and people are like, "Hey, is that you on there?" Yes.
I know. My daughter sees my shirt and she says, "That's Daddy."
That's right. Isn't that great?
The mouse pad is great.
Right. So, what's the address for the East West Audio Body Shop?
It is shop.ewabs.com.
Very cool. There's the mouse pad, and gosh, it's amazing. And by going to the East West Audio Body Shop, you're helping to support the show so we can buy new equipment so this kind of garbage doesn't happen anymore.
That's right. We're constantly upgrading.
We have plans, but we are upgrading, and this show is only going to get better. We have to catch up with Leo Laporte somehow.
Yeah, right.
But we're here because of you guys, and we want you to know that we appreciate it, so we want you to buy some more stuff.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We do appreciate it. It's a paltry sum that goes to the show, but it does actually help the show, so please keep doing it.
That's right. Anyway, let's continue on. What else did we want to talk about? Oh, I've got my feature coming up in here a little bit.
Yeah.
Talking about taking out breaths. We've had a lot of questions about taking breaths out of your audio. And I thought about this week because I had put out an audition. Remember last week I was talking about we need a teenage boy. Well, it turned out we needed some teenage girls too.
Oh.
And I sent out an audition notice on all the major forums saying, do you have a 12 to 16-year-old living in your house, eating your food, and giving you the attitude that your general 12 to 16-year-old will give you? Those of you with 12 to 16-year-olds know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And you've got a good home studio. Here's a script. Or, write to me, here's a script, for a project that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
The shocking thing was, and remember we talked about this, and I know Paul will remember this too, because he's the Mr. Nether voice out there. Some of the stuff I got back was low standard of what I would accept. And, people think, well, I've got a home studio. If it sounds like you're in the bathroom, you don't have a home studio. And that's something that you really have to work on. But back to taking breaths out of your audio. There's a couple of things that I wanted to discuss. You got that racked up there, George?
I do.
Okay, let's roll this and come back afterwards. And if anybody has any questions, we can answer some of those too. But it's time for my tip of the week. We got a lot of questions this week about taking out breaths in your audio. Hey, we all got to breathe, so it's important to learn how to take them out when you do have to take a breath. So let me demonstrate a couple of ways to do that using, in this particular case, Twisted Wave. Okay, listen to this particular file. I breathe kind of loud, but there are 4 distinct breaths in here, and we'll see how to remove them properly.
How do I keep my membership record up to date? We have a membership record about you. Your membership record has information from your enrollment form, including your address and telephone number. It shows your specific plan coverage, including the primary care physician you chose and other information. Section 3 tells how we protect the privacy of your personal health information.
Okay, so how do you get rid of those specific breaths? A couple of ways, and 3 actually. One is to simply highlight them and delete them. I breathe loud so you can see things a little bit better here. But when you do that, you sometimes create an unnatural pause.
How do I keep my membership record up to date? We have a membership record about you. Your membership record has information from your enrollment form, including your address and telephone number. It shows your specific plan coverage, including the primary care physician you chose and other information. Section 3 tells how we...
See how that sort of created an unnatural pause? So that may not be the actual best way to do that. So if we undelete all these, another way is to just de-amplify them. How do you do that? You highlight it and you hit apply. You lose about 20 dB. You'll see how I have that set at 20 dB, minus 20 dB right here. And that will create perhaps a more natural pause, but more importantly, it may leave part of the breath in there and it'll sound a little bit more natural. Here.
How do I keep my membership record up to date? We have a membership record about you. Your membership record has information from your enrollment form, including your address and telephone number. It shows your specific plan coverage, including the primary care physician you chose and other information. Section 3 tells how we protect the privacy of your personal health information.
Now, that pause might be a little bit too long for some people, so you can just go back and make minor adjustments in that and make that a little bit tighter.
And other information. Section 3 tells how...
See? But that's another way to do it, and it leaves a much more natural pause, and you can actually hear the breath. And if you breathe quieter than me, and I did this loud, it'll sound actually quite natural. And that's actually something that a lot of audiobook narrators do. But the best way to avoid or to make sure that you don't have all those breaths in there is to try and train yourself to not take so many breaths. You wouldn't believe the demos that I get where somebody is like breathing between every third phrase. Best thing to try and do is not do it with a lot of breaths. So listen.
In one breath. How do I keep my membership record up to date? We have membership records about you. Your membership record has information from your enrollment form, including your address and telephone number. It shows your specific plan coverage, including the primary care physician you chose and other information. Section 3 tells how we protect the privacy of your personal health information.
I took a breath in there. Sorry. Hey, I'm not perfect. But if you practice reading paragraphs and trying to do them without so many breaths, you'll save yourself an awful lot of time. It takes practice, but it also takes one other thing. So the real key to controlling your breath is to be in good shape. Exercise regularly. You're like a professional athlete. Take care of yourself, and that will help your breathing. And that's my tip for the week.
Is this thing on?
And now it's time for another exciting episode of Bad Audio of the Week.
Is this thing on?
And now it's time for another exciting episode of Bad Audio of the Week.
Is this thing on?
And now it's time for another exciting episode of Bad Audio of the Week.
Is this thing on?
And now it's time for another exciting episode of Bad Audio of the Week.
Pauses. Sometimes you take a breath and it breaks up the natural flow of the sentence, and then you've got to reconstruct that. So better if you learn how to use your breath control a lot better. I think it's probably one of the smartest things you can do is stay in shape. Work with a trainer if you can, or at least walk as often as possible. Walk your dogs because they want you to walk them anyway. And try to keep in shape. I found that when I was in much better shape after I worked out, rather religiously for a while, I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I got to get back into it, or my wife's going to kill me. You've got to. It makes it a lot easier because then when the doorbell rings and I run upstairs and run back down, I'm not out of breath when I get up back to the microphone here. So that's an important thing to know.
Well, apparently the people are experiencing a different show than the one we're experiencing because they were saying they were hearing the bad audio of the week bumper or intro playing on a loop for at least part of that conversation you're having. Even though I'm looking at the meters in Ustream and we're broadcasting the right audio. So, never a dull moment, folks. I don't know how to explain that one, but I apologize. And apparently we are back, and I think people are hearing us again. So thank goodness for that.
How much did they miss all that?
You guys didn't miss the video segment, right? You just missed the first part of what Dan was saying after the package was over, right?
Okay.
That would be a yes. They're concurring with that.
What? They didn't hear what I had to say.
They didn't hear the beginning of what you had to say.
Oh.
They heard your video, but they didn't hear what you had to say because the battle of the week. Remember how when I came out of it and you heard something about
hello?
You heard the intro from Bad Audio?
Right.
Don't know why that happened, but that's what happened.
I don't know.
So.
All right. Well, anyway, watch the replay. It'll be in there.
Right.
One way or another. And if
we
not,
sure hope so.
We're not panicking, though.
Send us a self-addressed stamp envelope, and we'll mail you a VHS cassette for $19.95.
I'm just gonna do the transcript of it.
Exactly.
Look, we're all going to talk to each other. And if you see me in the hallway at FAFCon or at Voice 2012, or give me a call, I'll reiterate everything I said. Anyway, get in shape and learn how to breathe.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom.
Do you ever use the select silence tool in Twisted Wave? Have you tried using that yet?
I've never have to because I know how to breathe.
Right. But for everybody else out there.
Yeah, that's a cool one to try. I have not actually. I think I used it once and it pushed everything together. I'm like, that's not what I want.
Yeah, well, select silence, what it does is just finds areas that you consider to be silenced based on a threshold.
Right.
And then selects it. Then once it's been selected, it's up to you what you want to do with it. If you want to delete it, probably not. Do you want to reduce the volume of it? Probably. Maybe you want to silence it. It basically lets you select all of these sections between the words that by your settings in the software are deemed to be silence. And that's based on a threshold, like a compressor would be.
Or a noise gate.
Yeah, and then you can tell it, say, well, okay, now wherever it's silenced, turn down the volume by 12 decibels. Or silence it completely. That's the kind of stuff and that may or may not be useful depending on the type of work you're doing, but some of you may find that it saves you a tremendous amount of time. Try it out.
Okay. Well, we got one more segment left, and then you guys all want to go to bed or have dinner or whatever it is you guys do out in the West Coast. And it's sometime in the afternoon out in Hawaii, so you guys out there, and I know there's got to be somebody from Hawaii there. Let's take a real quick break, and then we want to show some more pictures from some of your studios. So we'll be right back.
Stick around.
Please.
El Dorado Recording Services.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
This is Alex Verdi. Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish
I've got my travel kit, I got my Source Connect, I've got it all going on, thanks to you.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
This is East West Audio Body Shop with Dan Leonard in the East and George Whittam in the West. Two guys I love spending Sunday nights with.
Is this thing on?
And now it's time for another exciting episode of Bad Audio of the Week.
Is this thing on?
He has a great website, voiceoveressentials.com, where you can get all the best stuff that you need. Not everything, but the stuff that's essential, which is why he calls it Voiceover Essentials. He's got the Harlan Hogan VO1A mic, critically acclaimed. You know, you can get a MicPort Pro there, all the books. I think he is now an Auralex dealer.
Actually, I was going to show that right now.
Why don't you show that right now?
He is selling Auralex now, and Auralex is known to be one of the better acoustical foam options out there. They're probably one of the first companies to make acoustic foam that was, packaged and marketed to the home studio. And so he's got some select pieces. I think I'll focus this week on the Auralex Mudguard.
The Mudguard.
Yeah, which is, there's a lot of flavors of this thing. I think the original design of these little baffles that go behind your microphone was the Reflexion filter from SE. Right. And it was it's like $350.
$300.
And
I know. I got one back here. It's $300.
It's pretty good, but it's pretty expensive, and it's very, very heavy, very bulky. And the Auralex Mudguard is a very simple device that just takes some of their acoustic foam. It looks like a 1-inch thick foam, maybe 2 inches, and sort of it wraps it around the back side of the mic with a plastic mount that is then mounted to the stand. And it's very, very simple, very lightweight, and obviously pretty affordable too. It's $100. So this thing might be a nice option for those who maybe they've got a relatively large room they're working in, and they just want to knock down a little bit more of the reverberation from the room. I don't think you'd probably need this in a small booth or a closet, but I think in a room that needs to be tamed a little bit, sort of like a scenario like the picture that I'm showing right now, where it's a larger space and now you've got to just knock it down a little bit more for your voiceover. This could be a pretty nice idea.
Really.
I think it might work well in conjunction with other acoustical treatment. As you can see in this photo, there's some panels already on the wall, and that's kind of dealing with the overall room sound, but just to focus in the voiceover mic and dry it up, so to speak, this thing could work for that. So that's one of the new products on Harlan Hogan's voiceoveressentials.com. That's the Auralex Mudguard.
Right. And that's our feature of the week.
I think we'll start doing that. We'll focus on a new product, that comes up on his show or on his website each week, and we'll share it with everybody.
Maybe we'll get some co-op advertising out of it. You never know. Yeah. There we go. All righty. Well, we've been getting lots of great pictures from everybody. And whose studio? Oh, by the way, if you want to send in pictures of your studio, we want to see them. We won't make fun of them. We've actually praised them. And we had Dale's last week, and I loved that with all his mics and stuff. Who do we have this week? Let's take a look at who's our celebrity studio this week.
Well, I've got pictures from Diane Merritt.
Diane.
Yes, I want to bring her studio up here.
Okay.
I'm grabbing her shots right now as we speak, because I didn't prep because I was doing so much madness to get the show on the air that I didn't get to prep this. But let me grab these two shots right now and bring them up on camera. Here is the first one.
Okay.
That is a nice looking studio, Diane.
Oh, I've seen pictures of it. It's beautiful.
That's sharp. I mean, you can tell she came from radio. Can't you tell?
Yes.
I mean, that looks like a radio station right there. She's even got the double CD players. That might be I think that's a radio tuner, like a receiver right there.
Can you make it a full screen shot so I can
absolutely.
Play a couple
Sorry,
things
guys. Let me go full screen. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing, of course, is the lamp. Mood lighting is everything. We have to show the other one next week with the mood lighting in it. But totally. You can see she's got two screens.
Dual monitors.
Two monitors. She's got obviously her ISDN set up over there, and she likes to be in the radio way. I don't think I've ever described it that way. But she likes having that little flexible boom arm, which we all used in radio.
I think those are cool.
Yeah, they are.
I still like those.
Yeah, I mean, I have one. I just don't use it because I like doing things standing up.
Right.
So I don't really have that. There's another angle of that. And you can see she's got a small little Behringer mixer, I believe. And the most amazing thing is her desk is neat. This is really why we wanted to do this. We wanted to see how everybody's everybody's desk is. Yeah, that is a Neumann TLM 103. I think Diane has there, right, Diane?
Yes, it is. That is a TLM 103.
That is, and and she sounds great on it too. And is that a Buffalo Bills mug there too? I spy.
That's good eye.
Hey, we us Buffalonians, we pick out those things. We know what's there. Anyway, if you've got a studio, if you do, then you should be watching this show. If you don't, what are you doing here? If you want to see your studio on our show, send it into ewabshop@gmail.com, and we will get it on here and embarrass the heck out of you like we just embarrassed Diane. No, we didn't. Diane, you are proud of that place, are you not? That is a wonderful studio.
It looks like a great place to work. I mean, your studio has to not only sound good,
but
it has to. Yeah, it has to be a comfortable place that you enjoy being in every day. I had somebody come over, somebody had me come over a couple of days ago, and she says, I want to put my studio in this closet. And she showed me this tiny closet that I had to hunch over to get into. And I said, if you're doing auditions for animation or something, forget it. You have to be animate. You have to be able to move in this thing, And I said, she's like, well, yeah, well, I could do this. And she put her arm like this, like up on some crazy angle. She's like, I could go, look out, everybody. It was really funny what she was trying to do in this space. And she had clothing hang. She was like, well, I could leave all the coats in here because that dampens. I was like, well, yeah, but you can't rub and bump into the coats because the microphone hears that. So it has to be a space that you can work in comfortably. Right. That is really important, just as much as it does sound good. It doesn't have to look amazing. It just has to sound great, and it has to feel good to you to work in there. Those are the two most important things.
Right. And if you need some help, you know who to call.
That's right. Well,
not
we
the
can help
Ghostbusters. Call us here at the East West Audio Body Shop, and we'll set you straight if we haven't already.
That's right.
So, well, I think that's I'm going to bring it to ending with a whimper instead of a bang, which is probably a good thing, as T.S. Eliot once wrote.
Yeah, I didn't get any good bad audio of the weeks. I did get some people that sent us some audio.
And we did have bad audio week. The beginning of the show was bad audio of the week.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's not supposed to be our audio. That's the bad audio.
Oh, that's true.
I think we're missing the point. No, but we'll come back with some good stuff next week. I promise. We just want to keep things moving for everybody, and so you're not falling asleep at the end of the show.
Right. Well, I doubt that would happen. Hey, we still got everybody has stayed on. I mean, we still got 30 people on here. You guys are magnificent.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do another show right now, and we'll just roll it for during the Super Bowl. What do you say? We'll just keep going. Just kidding.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
It's let's see. It's 10:25 here in the east.
It's getting a little late.
Yeah, and then I know Amy's gonna be George dinner.
Exactly. I should be so lucky. Yeah, really. So it was fun, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for sticking it out through our ups and downs with the technology.
But like you said, it hangs by a thread. But fortunately, we know how to thread a needle.
That's what we do.
That's what we do every week. But we do it for you because you guys want this stuff, and we're happy to provide it to you. Mm-hmm. So stay in touch so we know what's going on out there, and we will. I guess we'll see you after sometime during the third quarter next week.
We'll see. We'll see how we feel about it.
We'll see how we feel about it.
Anyway. We'll get a feel for who wants to be watching.
Okay. All right, man. All right. We all know how I feel about that. Anyway, I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we are East West Audio Body Shop. Have yourselves a great week, and we will see you probably next Sunday. Have a good one, guys.
Maybe.